فيا أيها القاري به متمسكا مجلا له في كل حال مبجلا. بسم الله، الحمد لله، والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أهلا وسهلا بكم. It's lovely to have you with me. My name is Khalid Abu Shafi' in this series of the videos of Sifat. As we have previously in last video, we have spoken and discussed a very, very important chapter of Tajweed, which is sifaat elhorouf, the attributes and the qualities of letters in Quran and Arabic language. And we have mentioned that the letters of Arabic language would have permanent sifaat, permanent attributes and qualities that are always remaining within the letter. And we have categorized that into two parts. The part number one, which is the qualities with the opposites, and the other one are the qualities without the opposites. But before we discuss anything about the sifat and the attributes about al-hams, al-jahar, al-shidda, al-rakhawa, al-safir, and so on, we would like to discuss something very, very important that the ulama have discussed traditionally in their books. So before we discuss anything about the sifat, we need to understand how does the sound or the letter is produced. So what is the process? What is the mechanism? The ulama and our scholars, before the phonetics and the science of phonetics and linguistics in this modern century, the ulama from the first century like Sibawayh, Ibn Jinni, Qutrub, Al-Khalil ibn Ahmad al-Farahidi, Al-Mar'ashli, Makki ibn Abi Talib, Al-Imam al-Jazari, Al-Imam al-Shatibi, all of these ulama have introduced in their books, before studying the sifat, the makharij, they've spoken about a sawt, which is the sound, about al-hawa, which is the air, and about al-harf, which is the letter. Now, before we get into the sifaat al-huruf, we need to understand al-huruf. Before we talk about sifat al-huruf. So before we talk about the qualities and the attributes, we talked about what is al-harf and how al-harf is produced. The mechanism, as you can see here in the slide, the first thing during the speech or before the speech or the sound or the letter is produced, it is an air that is pushed out from the lungs through the vocal box. So when the air passes through the vocal cords or the organ cords, either the cords are closed or opened. When they are opened and the air is flowing easily without any difficulties or vibration, then that is what we call al-hams. And we will discuss this later on. I'm just giving a brief overview and perspective of how the sound and how the letter is formed and produced. And the second one is called al-jahr, which is when the cords and the organ cords are closed or they are vibrating. And that vibration, if it is high, then it's called al-jahr. If it is open and there is no vibration and the air is flowing easily, that's called al-hams. Now, up to this stage, all the languages of the world agree or come up to this stage, which is the airstream and the phonation. But when it comes into the points of articulations, then the languages of the world will differ. It will be different because the Arabic language is different than other languages. And that's what will come into the point of articulation. So when the air flows out, it moves and stops at a point of articulation. So every letter in Arabic language would be either hams or jahr. So either to be one of them, that's why there are opposites against each other or to each other. So when the letter and when the air comes out, it will go into a point within the throat or the oral cavity, the tongue, the lips or the nostrils, and then it will form, with that position, it will form the letter. Say for example, the dal. So if it comes into the tongue and form with the tip of the tongue and say ad, so the air came out and it's flowing normally. When it comes into the point of the tongue, tip of the tongue, it forms that sound by the blockage. That stoppage and the blockage, the degree of the stoppage will decide and will define this letter would be shadid from the letters of shidda, or the letters of rakhawa, or the letters in between, because there are letters of shidda and letters of rakhawa, and there are letters in between the shidda and rakhawa. So they either stopped completely and then the air let it go, or the air is flowing normally without stopping at that makharaj, at that point of articulation. And the example like sheen, for example, sheen is not one of the letters of shidda, is one of the letters of rakhawa, ash, as you can see. But if I say letters of shidda, which we're going to see later on in details, ad, ad, so it's a letter shadid, or at, aj. So the sounds stopped there. In the next video, inshallah, we will discuss more about letters of hams and the letters of jahr, and why the ulama of tajweed have called it al-hams and al-jahr, and the definition linguistically and technically. This is just an introduction for the meaning of sound and letter and air according to ulama al-tajweed. And also we will discuss more about sifaat al-huruf like al-hams and al-shidda, practically with the examples from the Quran. Jazakumullahu khairan for listening. I appreciate your listening and watching. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
هنيئا مريئا والداك عليهما ملابس أنوار من التاج والحلى